Thank you, President. This legislation to extend the state of emergency proves the government cares a lot about its own freedom to act, but does not care about the freedom of Victorians. Today, we are not just talking about legislation, we are talking about a rubber stamp to the terrible excesses of last year. Women being assaulted in the street, children being forced into isolation, protesters being put in danger, businesses forced to go broke, and people not getting checkups for cancer, heart conditions and other medical issues. We might have been able to consider this legislation if the government showed how their directions are proportionate and the least restrictive of rights as required by the Public Health and Wellbeing Act. But it's easier to find the recipe for KFC than to find any insight into their decision-making. Every question I've asked about proportionality has either been denied or waved away because it's apparently not about human rights. The Attorney-General herself was unable to even tell me that she's seen a human rights assessment in relation to the latest 5-day lockdown. The Ombudsman's investigation into the public housing tower lockdown revealed that sometimes this is just a mental process anyway, so the evidence suggests that many of these assessments probably don't even exist. And once again, we see the government cares desperately about its own privacy, but doesn't care about the privacy of Victorians. We know this because they happily send police to smash down the doors of people's homes who dare to organise a protest. They can and do use drones and helicopters to spy on people and download it to their servers. And for months last year, this was happening while the state's Human Rights Commission decided to not take calls from the public on the telephone. Orwell once said that if you want a vision of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. But it turns out in Victoria, you don't even have to imagine this. Does anyone here remember last year when a man who was on his way from a mental health appointment was filmed being kicked in the head by a policeman? There is no safeguard against this happening again in this legislation. But mental breakdowns are rarely seen in public. We know about massive spikes in calls to Lifeline that occur during lockdowns, but not much else, and that thousands of men, women and children in Victoria are left to battle anxiety and depression in private. During the latest lockdown, somebody very close to me had a major mental health issue from which they are yet to recover. For those thousands of people who suffered the consequences of this last year, and the people that know them, what we saw today at the exhibition building was sickening, because some of the people making the speeches were responsible for their suffering. And so here we are, a matter of hours later, enacting legislation that could have a terrible impact on the mental health of Victorians. And make no mistake, these lockdowns are a man-made mental health crisis, and it all starts right here. I note that the House amendment also indemnifies the government for locking up people if it is later found that they are unjustified. Once again, they protect themselves while this legislation allows them to hand out $1,600 fines to people for sitting on park benches. The government have made a few token amendments to this legislation this time around, but have shown their contempt for human rights by ignoring a key recommendation of the Ombudsman's report into the public housing tower lockdown. The Ombudsman recommended that detained people be allowed fresh air and exercise. So anyone who denies this request is a literal oxygen thief. The Liberal Democrats are proud to stand up for the rights of Victorians to breathe and go for a walk. We are proud to stand up for the people with mental health issues when it actually matters, like right now. And we are proud to stand up for human rights. The Liberal Democrats condemn this bill.